Welcome back to the Grow Along, and today we are going to be sowing our cornflowers. My picture's been photobombed. Look at that. Now, cornflowers are one of the easiest seeds to germinate and they will come up quite quickly for you. However, it is quite important that you sow them in the early autumn while it's still warm and while there's still plenty of light. Because if you sow them during the dark days of winter, they're not able to grow properly due to the low light levels. And what happens is they get quite a weak root system, which will often just rot off in wet, cold compost. So giving them a nice early start towards the beginning of autumn will give you the best results. So here are my cornflower seeds, and you can tell that they're cornflower seeds because they have this little tuft of water absorbing fibres sticking out. It's probably what makes them germinate quite so quickly. And all I'm doing is I'm just dipping a little impression in the compost, and then I'm going to sow one seed per cell into the impression. Now, if you want to, you can cover the seeds up, or they're so easy, you can just leave it exposed and then you can keep an eye on germination. Don't forget your label. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sow this colour in the other half of the tray. And that's it. The tray has been pre-moistened. It's nice and heavy, so I don't need to water it at the moment. I'm going to pop it on the top shelf in a nice light bright situation. Now, the cornflowers will grow slowly and steadily throughout the winter, and once we get to late winter, very early spring, just when we're about to sow some more seeds in the greenhouse, at that point we can move them out under the cold frame or into a sheltered spot to start the hardening off process, and we can plant them out in the garden long before the last of the frosts, freeing up some space in your greenhouse. These are the cornflowers, and this is about the 2-week mark. They come up very quickly. So these are my cornflowers. They're now 5 weeks old, and you can see they've produced the most fantastic root system, which will help overwinter them beautifully, and they'll be ready to get cracking. We'll probably pop them on in January into 15 cell trays, let them grow on for a little bit longer before planting them out in the garden, and they will literally get off to a flying start next spring. Now that all of this, if you imagine, this is 5 weeks hard work, and that is now been done and doesn't need to be done in the spring. So it's no wonder that autumn jump starting works so well. Had a few questions about the roots that tend to appear out the bottom of the tray and whether you need to pot on plants straight away. Often you don't. Can you see? We've got a really good root system on this plant, and it does need moving on now. But this is a cornflower, and cornflowers need to have a good root system to be able to cope with the cold and the damp through the dark days of winter, and you can see this one really has. I'm moving it on now, but often if the plant isn't big like this, it doesn't need potting on. All that's happened is the tray underneath has got the water in it, so the roots will naturally seek out that moisture and send a root through into the bottom tray. So it doesn't necessarily mean that need potting on. If they're small, they probably don't, and if they're a whopper like this, then they definitely do. So it's now the end of February, and it's been a very mild start to the year, so we're able to plant out our cornflowers, and this is what we're after: good strong root growth. Now, in order to achieve that, you need to start them in autumn, not winter, because they won't be able to grow because of the light levels being so low. So an autumn jump starter cornflower sown with me will give you really good 15 cell size plugs to put in your garden in late winter or very, very early spring. I thought you might like to see how we're getting on. Look at that. Now, these are very hardy, so don't worry if you suddenly get another cold snap. They've been hardened off carefully, and they are good even if it snows. So a quick update on the cornflowers. If you haven't planted yours yet and they've been hardened off, now's a good time. The temperatures have lifted, and these are the ones I did a few days ago. They look like they've doubled in size already, don't they? Absolutely brilliant. The cornflowers are looking truly magnificent now. This is our mix. It's got beautiful colours in them. And when you're picking them, you don't have to just pick the individual cornflower, which can take hours. You can actually pick the whole branch and use the buds that are just opening and the buds that haven't opened yet, just as like a foliage filler. So you can just use cornflowers on its own. And don't worry if they bend over and wilt slightly when you first pick them. Leave them in a bucket of water overnight and they'll perk up. Let me show you. Blue Peter style, here is one I prepared earlier. So I picked this last night and left the flowers to condition overnight. You can see all the stems are standing up to attention. And I just thought, I caught it out the corner of my eye when I was wandering around, and I just had to share it with you. So this is, all it is cornflower Swan Cottage mix and sweet pea Swan Cottage mix. So literally a packet of each of the seeds would give you a bucket of flowers that look like this. What could be better? So that is the sweet rocket, the snapdragons, the nigella, the euphorbia, and now the cornflowers under our belt. If you've missed any of the videos, you can visit my website now and catch up. All the information is also covered in your handbook and in the checklist section here.